Thank you all for being here. Sorry, late. This is always our biggest of our business seminars every year, and this is, in terms of the number of registered people, far and away the biggest one we've ever had. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you to all our panelists. We'll get to Mayor-elect Paul Young, who I have to stop calling Paul, and I have to start calling him Mayor-elect, so I'm practicing today. But again, thanks everyone for being here. We've got a great panel coming. We're going to talk about Blue Oval. We're going to talk about economic development. We'll start with a quick Q&A with Paul Young here in a minute, and we've got sponsors. I'm Eric Barnes. I'm CEO and executive editor of the Daily Memphian. Thank you all for being here. I'll do a little bit of housekeeping as we continue to get people in and seated and be friendly, let people kind of move in and stuff. I'll do a couple self-promotional things of Daily Memphian. We did just celebrate our 5th anniversary in September from launch, so we're very excited about that. Thank you. It is a remarkable thing, and not for any specific thing I did, but for everyone involved, everyone who's subscribed, everyone who's advertised, everyone who's spoken at an event or sponsored an event. Again, some people have heard me do this, and I'll do it quickly, but local news in this country is collapsing. 30 to 35,000 local journalists have lost their jobs over the last 20 years. That's not like they moved to a different paper. They're just gone. They're out of the industry. Thousands, 2,500 at least, newspapers have closed in the last 20 years. There are a couple thousand papers that are known as ghost papers, where they kind of distribute every week or every day, but there's really no content in it, no staff that really works for it. And even then, the papers that do survive, by and large, at a local level, have seen reductions of about 90% of their staff. And I'm not picking on the CA when I say this, because the folks at the CA are great journalists, and I want the world to have more local journalists in Memphis and outside Memphis. But you do the math. In 2000, the Commercial Appeal had about 250 people in the city of Memphis, covering Memphis. They have about 19 now. And that is typical across the country. In fact, Memphis is an anomaly in the sense that we have 2 daily papers. I mean, we're digital, but I still call us a paper. We've got the MBJ, we've got MLK 50, we've got the Flyer, the magazine, we've got publications I'm forgetting right now, and I apologize. We actually have a pretty thriving local news market here. We still have 4 TV stations, and that's an anomaly in the country, and it says a lot about people like you who care about local news, who care about civic issues, who care about who gets elected, who care about business and the economy. So it is hats off to Memphis, frankly, that the Daily Memphian exists. Because in the face of those collapses across the country in local news and the disappearances of papers, we are an anomaly. In the last 5 years, when we started, and I don't know if Andy Cates is here, one of my friend and co-founder and board chair, I know he'll be here in a minute, but we thought other people would be doing the same thing right behind us. We weren't trying to do something that was unique in the country, and it is almost entirely unique in this country. And so thank you all for your support. That's when I segue into we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and if you want to donate before the end of the year, we would really appreciate it. Truthfully, we really would. Okay. A couple more housekeeping things here. We've got the sponsors coming up here in a second. We have mostly video messages today. You'll see Natalie Van Gundy, who's down here, some of you all know, who produces our events and produces our podcasts and behind the headlines that we do over on WKNO. Other staff I should thank is Sophia Surratt. Where's Sophia? Sophia, you're going to have to stand up. I'm sorry. So Sophia is our new commercial real estate reporter. So y'all, if you get a 3-year option and extension of a small out parcel, you want to call Sophia right today, okay? She's going to put it breaking news right away. No, but do introduce yourself to Sophia. She is new to the beat and 6-8 months into Memphis. So, and then also Brad Vest is taking photos for us today. And there's a whole lot of folks that are part of making these things possible. Janice Jenkins, Carrie O'Gwyn, Heather, Michelle, Mamo, Jen, Kathy, all the folks you saw getting you in here. So thanks to all of them for making this possible. I'm going to bring up Natalie, and we'll hear from our sponsors.
Evans Petrie is a full-service law firm founded in 1907 and located in Memphis, Tennessee. We represent a diverse roster of local, national, and international clientele. Our 43 attorneys here at Evans Petrie offer counsel in a wide variety of practice areas, including real estate, property tax, banking, corporate, construction, employment law, tax planning, and wills and estates. We are proud to be the legal sponsor of this event and welcome you to visit our website at evanspetrie.com.
For over 50 years, John J. Campbell Company has proudly served the Mid-South, handling commercial and industrial roof construction, along with industry-leading repair and maintenance services. John J. Campbell has since had the privilege of working with a variety of national entities, as well as local and regional contractors. A leader in the commercial roofing industry, you can count on John J. Campbell to take care of your project's needs professionally, covering the Mid-South for over 50 years.
When it's your business, it's your passion. At Orion, we understand the importance of taking swift action to capitalize on opportunities in your market. Office buildings, multifamily properties, retail spaces, or mixed-use developments. We'll work with you to provide the resources and expertise you need for your next venture.
Woodland Presbyterian School has served the Mid-South community for over 65 years. Founded in 1956 and located in the heart of East Memphis, Woodland serves girls and boys ages 2 years old through 8th grade. Being an independent Christian school, Woodland has the opportunity to teach more than academics. Through our intentional 2K through 8th grade model, we value the importance of balancing the many aspects of a child's life and intentionally choose experiences intended to foster the individual growth of the intellectual, spiritual, creative, physical, social, and emotional roots, with the aim of seeing each child succeed to the greatest of his or her God-given abilities.
And we've got one sponsor here. John Warren's going to come up from speak in person. Yes, at work, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody. We have a lot in common with the entire Mid-South community and especially the business community. Our company is Workplace Furniture. We are an 18-year-old regional dealership that specializes in new and high-end used furniture. We represent about 50 manufacturers of all types of cubicles, desk groups, seating, tables, and much more. And with that kind of redundancy, we can offer better savings and more alternate options for your needs. Our company operates from a large 6,000 square foot showroom where we serve small to medium businesses, light industrial, municipalities, and many more. Our services include space planning, layout, design, and installation, all backed by a team with over 80 years of project management experience. We try and stress timely responsiveness and a consultative approach to getting you the style you want, the quality you need, at a budget you can afford. Our clients are looking for a simplified buying process that provides well thought out solutions loaded with value and style, installed on time. So if you're moving, expanding, or renovating, give us an opportunity to earn your business. Here are just a few of our many accounts, and I don't know where the slide is, but it'll pop up. But come visit us anytime at our showroom or at workplacefurniture.com. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank all our sponsors because they make this possible. I appreciate also, it costs money to come here and you're taking time from work, but the sponsors really make this happen for us every single year. So thank you. And many of these have been with us since back to the old Daily News and beyond. So we really do appreciate that. Before I get the mayor up here, let me just say about format today. We'll have Q&A here with the mayor-elect, with the mayor-elect. Jim's not gone yet. And then we'll bring up Ursula Madden to talk about Blue Oval City. We'll bring up Gwyn Fisher, talk about economic development and various things the chamber is working on that she can talk about. Then we'll bring up 3 people from some various sectors in CRE, office, industrial, retail, with Gwyn and Ursula, and do a panel discussion. Paul, after the Q&A, I think has to get going, so I don't know how long he'll stay. But and then after that, we've got, because this group is this group, we have 2 bars. There's a bar over there. We learned this years ago, and a bar over there. And we also have this amazing sort of like, am I getting married again? Like, what's happening? Kind of set up out here in this tent. So there's a tent thing. I don't know what happens there, but we'll see. I think that's probably it. So let me bring up Mayor-elect Paul Young. All right, so, thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Natalie. Thanks for doing this. I had 2 jokes that I was going to do. One was I was going to play the 3 6 Mafia song that you came up. But we were afraid the site would break with the comments, so we didn't do that.
Got a lot of feedback on that.
And then my other joke is that you have been up here. You've been a keynote for us. You've been on panels before, which 1, I appreciate, and 2, see if you are on a panel with us, what happens. Just think about it. You've been mayor-elect now for 6 weeks?
Something like that.
Something like that. I'm sure it seems like more or less, but
yes.
I think I know the answer, but what is it that people now most ask you about, tell you to do? What is most on their mind?
Yeah, I mean, you know the answer. The number 1 question I get is, what are we going to do about, actually they say, what are you going to do about crime? And every time I get that question, I tell them that they're asking the wrong question. The question is, what are we going to do about crime? Because the mayor plays a pivotal role, and we can talk more about what the strategy is, but I want the broader public to understand that this has to be an all-hands-on-deck effort. Like, what we're dealing with right now in our community is not something that one leader or even multiple leaders can stop. It's going to take all of us. Everybody in our community has a cousin, a nephew, a friend, or somebody that's doing all of the crazy stuff that we're seeing. I was on a panel just yesterday, or actually the day before, it all runs together, and somebody made the point of how crime has been in our community and across the country, just brazen everywhere, and they attributed some of it to social media and the fact that there are young people that are just trying to outdo the last young person that got the viral video. And so when you see young people spinning and doing donuts, that's all about doing it for the gram. That's doing it for social media. When you see them, 30 people running into a grocery store, they're trying to see who can do the most brazen things. And so we as a community are gonna have to step up and educate our young people, as well as doing all of the punitive things that we know we have to do to try and have a forceful stance on making sure people know that there are gonna be repercussions for actions.
What should, again, specific maybe to your part, and you've said, and I think it's a phrase that has resonated with people that I've talked to about, we need a pandemic level approach to crime, to the crime problem, in the same way that it was the business community, it was government, it was the state, it was the federal, it was city, it was suburbs, all that we're trying to deal with COVID, get vaccines out, and so on. What are the reasonable expectations people should have? I mean, you're inaugurated January 1st. Crime is not going to disappear on January 2nd, but what are the reasonable expectations? I
mean, people should see action. You should see things taking place. I think part of the challenge in our community, and why I liken it to the pandemic, is because during the pandemic, I mean, at a national level, we saw Dr. Fauci every other day, and he's telling us something. It's something to give us some calm, that people were still getting sick, people were still dying, but we knew somebody was at the helm. Somebody's paying attention to what's going on in this community. And I think one of the steps that we have to take as a community is we have to have a visible effort. Like, people have to see us. They have to see us out. They have to see us at the table. That's the most important thing when I talk about this pandemic-like response, is because all of us were together. And right now there's a lot of finger pointing because there's frustration, and I get it. But the public needs to see us at the table taking some actions. We also need to see an enhanced presence of officers and law enforcement. That also brings calm. What we have to do is restore the perception of safety in our community, because there's not a room I go into where this is not the topic, unfortunately. And I think in order to really get our community clicking on all cylinders like we know we should and can be, we're gonna have to restore the perception of safety, understanding there's still gonna be some things that we have to work on once that's restored.
I'll move from crime in a second, talk about some other things, but I will editorialize a little bit in that, you know, we've done a lot of coverage of crime, a lot of conversations with mayoral candidates, and especially with all the various parts and pieces of the criminal justice system. A handful of judges that we've been able to interview on keynote and interview in the paper, judicial commissioners, county commissioner, sheriff, DA, state representative, the current city mayor, and suburban mayors. And one of the things about it is that it's all, I've called it an archipelago before. It's all these little islands in a system that's supposed to work together but doesn't always. And I will editorialize and say that I think overwhelmingly what I hear is that people want you, the mayor, Paul Young, to be that person who's out front on it, because they do want someone out front.
Yeah.
They do want someone, they want us to hold elected and appointed officials accountable in the criminal justice system, and that we do the best we can, but they want someone, even if it's not your explicit authority, they want someone they can say, hey, who's that person in charge? So I hear that when I do not as many speaking engagements as you, but I do a bunch. That's kind of what I hear.
Yeah.
We'll move on from crime. It's commercial real estate, obviously a lot of business and business-minded folks here. Somebody who, a friend I saw in Crosstown, right, maybe the day after the election, I can't remember what, I think they may have supported you or not, it doesn't really matter, but they said, I'm just glad there's a mayor who not only used the word capital stack, but I think knows what it means. And what's your message to the business community, and specifically the development, real estate development, commercial real estate community that's here?
I think we are still, even despite the economic challenges that we've seen, and again, it's not just Memphis, it's all across the nation. We know that many real estate development deals have gotten tougher. I'm president of Downtown Memphis Commission, and I have worked with many developers who we've had to extend their pilots out while they continue to work. But I think the thing to be optimistic about is that people aren't giving up. They aren't throwing in the towel on our city. They are still trying to find a way to get these projects done. Just earlier today, we had the groundbreaking for 100 North Main, a project that when I started at DMC, I kind of walked into, and I didn't think it was even, possible for us to get, more than 4 or 5 responses to our solicitation that we were putting out, and we ended up getting 11 from developers all across the country, and this is pre-pandemic. But actually, it was actually after the pandemic. And so that showed that there's interest in our community, and that interest is still there. The crime conversation certainly comes up. I want you all to hear that I know and I understand how important addressing crime is. We talk about it often in downtown, but the more development we can get happening, the more people we can get out and about in our communities and in our streets, it actually makes things safer. And so I'm proud to see that we have projects moving forward like 100 North Main and others that are still on the table.
To what extent, I mean, at DMC and before when you were at Housing and Community Development, lots of sort of public-private partnerships, incentives, all those kinds of things. You're very well versed in that, very experienced in that. Do you see using those tools more aggressively now that you will be in the mayor's office?
I don't know about more aggressively. We want to use them as needed. I mean, we want to incentivize development. I mean, Memphis has some markets, and this is a real estate room. There are markets in our city, and I mean neighborhoods, communities in our city where the market works, where you can buy a piece of property, you can improve the property, and you can sell the property, and you make a return, and you go on to the next deal. There are areas where it works, but there are still areas of Memphis where the math doesn't work. You buy the property, you make improvements to the property, and you have to sell it for less than what you put into it. The math doesn't work, so the property sits there. There are far too many communities like that, and that's why we must use incentives to try to close that gap. And whether it's downtown, where you have expensive real estate, or historic preservation, which is a priority for us, we need those incentives to make those types of projects happen. Or you look at areas like South Memphis, North Memphis, Whitehaven, Fraser, areas that have been neglected for many years. We need those tools so that we can drive development in those areas.
Ursula Madden's here is going to give us an update on Blue Oval City, the big Ford plant. It's outside the city of Memphis. It's outside Shelby County. It will have some big or huge or some impact on Memphis. You look at a project like that before you go, how do you see the city, once you're mayor, capitalizing on Blue Oval?
Well, I'm honored to have an opportunity to be able to benefit from that in the mayor's office. That's going to be significant. Ursula will give the numbers, but I remember when the project was initially announced, it was about 6,000 jobs, and I'm not even talking about the ancillary jobs that come along with it, and $5–6 billion of development. That is a significant investment in our area, and we know that 6,000 employees can't just come from Haywood County. Memphis is going to have to benefit from those jobs. And so there's going to be a lot of conversations around infrastructure, transportation to get people to and from the jobs, but I think it's going to be game-changing for our region. And as I think from a visionary perspective, we're going to have more electric vehicles developed and created in this community than anywhere else in the country. That means that we should be the hotspot for innovation around EV infrastructure and technology, autonomous vehicles. We should be thinking futuristically about the Mid-South region. And when I really believe that regionalism is really, really important for us. We are not competing against Memphis and South Haven. We're competing against the Memphis MSA versus the Birmingham MSA versus the Chicago MSA. And so we have to think regionally. Obviously, I'm the mayor of Memphis, so we're going to do what we can to make sure Memphis is strong, but we are all stronger together as a region, and Blue Oval City will be a big part of our future.
Last question for you. The legislative session is right around the corner. Outside of crime, because I imagine there's a whole lot of crime priorities that you'll have, what are your priorities? Maybe let's say focus on business or related issues, again, just outside of crime to kind of simplify this, for the legislature.
Quite frankly, my biggest priority for the legislature this year is going to be relationships. I know some of them, but not deeply, and so my goal is to make sure that we have a very strong relationship with the state, and so I'll be going back and forth. I don't have specific asks at this time, but as the legislature moves forward, there's always a lot of bills that are being proposed and have some good, some negative impacts on our community, so we'll be responding to those things as we're building those relationships.
Are you still glad you ran?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, especially since I won. Yeah.
All right, Paul Young, Mayor-elect, thanks so much for being here.
Right.
We'll have you back. First up, thanks again to Paul Young. We really appreciate him being here and appreciate the time and so on. Ursula Madden is here to talk about Blue Oval. I was thinking it was like 6–9 months, but it's actually been a little over a year that she left the administration to go over to Blue Oval, to the Ford plant. She's here. She's going to give us an update. I think you all know Ursula, so I don't have to totally introduce her. Ursula Madden.
Thank you, Eric, for that riveting introduction. I don't know that everybody in the room knows me. I'll just give you a little bit of background. I actually took out the slide that shows where I've been and who I am because I thought, oh, they'll just introduce me, and that'll be a redundant slide. Why would I want to do that? But I'm a Ford hire. I've been seconded out to the electric vehicle battery plant that's being built out at Blue Oval SK. I'm the external affairs director for Blue Oval SK, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a bit. Prior to coming to Blue Oval SK and working for Ford, I was the chief communications officer for the city of Memphis, in which Paul and Eric were referencing a little bit under Mayor Jim Strickland. So some of those deals that they were talking about, really glad to hear about 100 North Main. Yay! About time. That took a minute, but we are glad that that is underway. So today I just wanted to kind of give you a 50,000-foot view of Blue Oval City and talk you through a little bit of what is going on out there in Stanton. Of course, we all remember back in the day when it used to be called the Memphis Megasite, and then that got changed over to the West Tennessee Megasite, and now it is Blue Oval City. There are two major plants that are out there. Of course, it's Blue Oval SK, which is a battery plant, but there's also a truck manufacturing plant that Ford has put together. It's the Tennessee Electric Vehicle Center. And the campus, of course, is 3,600 acres. It's enormous, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Right now, what you're looking at in the foreground is the Blue Oval SK plant, 4 million square feet. And back in the distance there, in the background, you can see TEB-C. This kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what that footprint looks like. This is the largest auto manufacturing campus in Ford's history, 121 years. This is their largest campus that they've ever built. So the layout in 1 through 4, that is the TEB-C, where they will stamp out the new truck. 6 through 7 in the back there, that is Blue Oval SK, and all that space in the middle is where the suppliers are going to go. 6 suppliers are scheduled to be using that space. Right now, you've heard of Magna. That is going to be an announced supplier. They actually build parts for the truck. So why did we choose West Tennessee? And the site is just huge. There's all this space out there with lots of room to grow. And when I say lots of room to grow, we're only using 50% of that site right now. So if you think that we could put another truck plant out there, another EV battery plant, and have 6 more suppliers. So we're only using half the space at this time. So there's room to grow. There's room to create more jobs, create more of everything. But it was the size of the plant, the size of the space, it's shovel ready, it was flat, easy to develop. The economic incentives didn't hurt. And of course, we also thought about workforce. We are planning to hire 6,000 people, and that's really important to know that you can get the people to fill those positions. So this is Blue Oval City by the numbers. T3 is the all-new Ford truck that they will be building out at the plant. That is not Terminator 3. I think it just was a cool name that the designers just sort of like latched on to, and they're excited about it. I can't wait to see what the new truck is going to be. I'm excited about that. It was previously announced that it was going to be the F-150 Lightning, and we had to reel that back in. It is a new Ford truck. At full production, we'll be able to produce 500,000 trucks per year at that site. It's a $5.6 billion investment. So, and I'll say a little bit more about the JV being a startup, but it's a multi-billion-dollar startup, which is a little mind-boggling. You'll have site selectors tell you, if somebody comes to you with the deal, they say they've got thousands of jobs and they're going to invest billions of dollars, they'll be like, yeah, keep moving. That's too good to be true, but this is the real deal. $5.6 billion in investment, and between Blue Oval SK and TEB-C, creating those 6,000 jobs. Production begins in 2025. So also part of that equation is the workforce, as I talked about. Since Blue Oval City will be creating those 6,000 jobs, developing the workforce has been a top priority for Ford. The Ford Workforce Development Team is very eager to make sure that people have the types of training that they will need to fill these positions out at the plants. We want these jobs to be filled by people who are from Memphis, from West Tennessee, and we're working closely with educators, school systems, the state of Tennessee to ensure that that actually happens. Just so you know, part of the incentive plan was that the state of Tennessee is building a TCAT that is adjacent to our site. We're really glad to have that out there where people will be trained nearby, and that pipeline can come directly over to us. It's a $40 million investment by the state of Tennessee for that new TCAT. And here's something to brag about for our Ford plant that's out there for the TEB-C. Once fully operational, the assembly plant at Blue Oval City will be carbon neutral. utilizing 100% renewable energy, sending zero waste to landfill, making zero freshwater withdrawals for assembly and production. So that's some good news for the environment. And now I want to give you a little bit of an overview about Blue Oval SK, the battery plant. So it is a 50-50 joint venture between Ford and SK On in South Korea. So half of that $5.6 billion is put in by SK On. As I said before, the plants are 4 million square feet. They produce about 40 gigawatts of energy. And the highest point on the building, 95 feet tall, and we are expecting to fill 2,500 positions there. This just gives you an inside look at the interior space. This was a little while ago. I'm sure it's filled out a little bit more out there on the campus, but you can begin to see what it's going to look like on the inside. So Blue Oval SK uses what they call nickel, cobalt, manganese chemistry technology for their EV batteries. It's mixed together in a slurry spread across accordion-style sheets that are stacked together in a cell or a pouch. That pouch is about the thickness of a medium-sized magazine. And then those pouches are stacked into modules. The modules then go into what are called packs underneath the vehicle, and this is what that looks like. So that is an electric vehicle battery. You can see there's 4 modules there. You can kind of see the inside, how the pouches are stacked in there into the module. Anybody here ever driven an electric vehicle? It's smooth, right? Like, smoothest ride ever. I drove a F-150 back from Atlanta, Georgia, to Memphis, and I could not believe it. And I'm not a truck person. You know, I've got an SUV. I'm a mom, soccer mom. And I could not believe it. I got in that truck and I left feeling like I really need to get one of these someday. I've got to have a truck. It's the smoothest ride ever. It's amazing. And it's because the battery is so heavy, when you're going over bumps, it keeps the car centered and lower to the ground. So you just don't feel all that road junk that's out there. Okay, so I would be remiss if I did not tell you about Blue Oval SK Battery Park in Kentucky. Part of this is that while we have one battery plant that is out in Stanton at Blue Oval City, we have 2 more battery plants that are being built simultaneously in central Kentucky in this little area called Glendale. That's about a 1,500 acre site. The twin plants, they're each 4 million square feet. To give you an idea, roughly that's about 50 football fields. 80 gigawatt hours produced there, 5,000 jobs, also production beginning in 2025. And this is what that site looks like right now. In the background there, you see what we call Kentucky 1. The outside of it is almost 100% complete. Inside, they're going to start doing installation of equipment pretty soon. And that is actually being shipped from overseas because this is new technology to the United States. We don't have the equipment to create those batteries, but we will. And you can see in the front there, that is what we call Kentucky 2. It is being built out right now. Boy, 6 months ago, all that looked like was just a little bit of metal, and now it's halfway to being done. We are very interested in being good community partners, so I wanted to share some of the pictures and photos where we've been out and about in the community, partnering up, Blue Oval SK partnering up with Ford just to let our presence be known and get some brand recognition, but also to make some really significant contributions to the community and to engage people where they are, let them know about the opportunity for jobs out at Blue Oval SK and at TEPC. We've been at all kinds of things, career fairs. This was Southern Heritage Classic. That's the F-150 Lightning that you see out there. And we're hauling in the background. That's our parade float. We call it the Lightning Wagon. And this was a great picture. I'm showing this. I wish I had a wide shot of it, but we had a DJ on hand at Southern Heritage Classic, and she is actually powering her equipment through the F-150 Lightning. So a party can be had in that truck. just in case you were wondering. You know, we used it to power our balloon for the Strawberry Festival, just all kinds of things. We go to career fairs. We have town halls around West Tennessee letting people know about the plant and about the opportunities there. And I would like to also share with you that we are hiring. We are hiring right now at Blue Oval SK. TEBC is hiring too, but they haven't geared up on hourly employment. Some of the jobs and positions that we are hiring for on the hourly scene right now are production operators, associated maintenance techs, and maintenance techs. The salaries range from $21 an hour to $37.50 an hour, depending on your experience. So these are good paying jobs. We have great benefits. We are hoping that we get a lot of engagement from the city of Memphis and Shelby County. And please follow us. Go to blueovalsk.com. You can see where all of our career opportunities are listed. These are all the social media platforms that we are on. And then we also have a newsletter. Just go to blueovalsk.com and get the scoop. And this is for folks who may be interested in finding out more information about TEBC and the Ford plant that is out at Blue Oval City. And I've got it for Q&A, but I guess we'll wait. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
So I was thinking about why I didn't introduce Ursula. When you took the job with Strickland, so I guess it was in his first year, and he'd been on behind the headlines numerous times in the election and city council, but he comes in to do it, and the way it works is we start and we're taping, and there are a handful of people in here who've done the show, and I always screw up, and then we have to stop. And I screw up like once, and then we start over, and I screw up again, and I screw up a third time, and Strickland goes, oh, it's because Ursula's in here. He's making you nervous, because she's an actual TV professional, and I, as my kids like to say, a public access TV personality. So anyway, but thank you, Ursula, very much. And we will get Ursula back up here for questions, and you may have ask questions of everybody afterward. Gwyn Fisher is Chief Economic Development Officer for the Greater Memphis Chamber, and I will bring her up. I don't do big introductions. You all know who these people are, and they introduce themselves. So, Gwyn Fisher.
All right, good afternoon. I'm short, so let's pull this down just a hair. Excited to be here today. Again, Gwyn Fisher. I serve as the Chief Economic Development Officer for the Greater Memphis Chamber. And I'm a recovering attorney, and when I would do this as an attorney, I'm an attorney, and I was okay, I know what that is. And when I introduced myself as Chief Economic Development Officer, even my own mother tilts her head and goes, oh, what is that? What that means is that my team and I get up every day and think about how to grow our entire economy for everyone. And this is that team, our economic development team. That covers everything from your neighborhood level activation and community development work to an entire suite of workforce development programs. We had a big announcement yesterday. Go check out our website to learn more. To a lot of the big, what I call glitter cannon projects that you guys hear about, biggest of which being Blue Oval City. And one day I'll tell you all the secrets of how we did that. It was a pretty crazy ride to get them here. So this is our team. I'm going to take a few minutes today to talk about what we do, how we do it, and hopefully why it matters to each of you. So at the Chamber, we are committed to what we call Prosper Memphis 2030. And this is our commitment to 50,000 high-quality jobs, at least half of which are held by minorities. We need 700 new advanced industry firms, and we need to grow our annual STEM credential output to 20,000 a year. These are not made-up pie-in-the-sky goals. The Chamber partnered with the Brookings Institute to understand what it would take to move our economy into the top tier of regional economies. I'm going to go back to what the mayor-elect said, because for better or worse, we are a 9-county, 3-state region, and we will rise and fall together. And so together we will achieve these 50,000 high-quality jobs. When we do that, our entire region can begin to prosper. So this is how we do it out in the world. As I said, a big part of what we do is the recruitment of new businesses. Memphis Moves is our global campaign to tell that Memphis story. I encourage each of you to visit memphismoves.com. I guarantee you will learn something about your community. It is where we post a wealth of information. So how do we decide what businesses to go after? I mean, yeah, Ford was an easy one. They actually called first, and thanks, Ford. But how do we decide what businesses to go after? So about 2 years ago, the Memphis Chamber founded the Greater Memphis Economic Research Group, which is a giant mouthful that we call GMERGE. They do a series of industry deep dives that really help us understand our economy. So how many of you in here sell something? Anything, real estate? Yeah, most of us sell something. You know your products inside and out. You know your market inside and out. You know your customers inside and out. You know your competition inside and out. Well, Memphis was out there selling Memphis without any of that data. And now with GMERGE, we have this information. We understand where we're growing, where we're shrinking. We know where our strengths are. A couple of cool things we found out. If you've ever heard me speak before, you know I say this over and over. We discovered our superpower and got the data to prove it. You know what that is? It's our diversity. Did you know that Memphis has the highest concentration of minority tech talent of any city? Any city, not Atlanta, not Detroit, Memphis. 1 in 4 computer positions are held by a minority here in Memphis. That's huge. You're not going to find that in Silicon Valley. Advanced manufacturing, again, highest concentration of minority talent in advanced manufacturing. Highest concentration of women in advanced manufacturing. We have one of the highest concentrations of women in the boardroom of any city our size. That's huge, but if you don't have the data, if you don't do the research, I can't get out there and tell that story. And I guarantee you, when I sit across from CEOs, which is what I did yesterday, I sat across from a CEO of a global company, shared this information right here, and they go, I had no idea. Well, now you do know. And I get to do that every day, y'all. It's the coolest job ever. Way better than being an attorney. I promise, way better. And I've got some of my former attorney colleagues here, so sorry about that, guys. So here's just a couple of the brands that are making moves in Memphis. I'm surprised how often you see names you know, obviously FedEx, AutoZone, but companies like Front Door and SurgePays. Anybody know those guys were here? These are great companies that are growing and moving here in Memphis. So Eric mentioned, I'm going to talk about what I can talk about. This is the sort of crummy part of my job. I come home every day and they say, well, honey, what'd you do today? I said, well, I had a lot of meetings. Oh, who'd you meet with? I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that we are currently working with 54 different companies that are looking to locate or expand in this area. They represent more than 15,000 high-quality jobs. Think about what that would do, 15,000. Now, we're not going to win them all, but if we won half of those, that's huge. $16 billion in capital investment, of which about 40% of this is foreign direct investment. Why does it matter if it's foreign direct investment? That's new money into our economy. That's the difference between buying new living room furniture and adding on a master suite. When we can inject new money into our economy, we're growing the whole pie, not just getting new furniture. And the average estimated wage on that is $15.66 an hour. So what have we done so far in 2023? We have announced 11 projects. That's 6 expansions and 5 recruitments, representing 1,700 new jobs with over $1 billion in anticipated capital investment. Look at that estimated average annual wage. That's a family-changing wage. That's a poverty-stopping wage. These are the high-quality jobs that my team and I are focused to bring and grow in this area. And you see some of the companies that are going to be a part of that. So I want to talk just a second, because we are here to talk about commercial real estate. This year, the Memphis Chamber launched what we call MEM-Ready, and it is our region's first site development program. Let me tell you what it's not. We don't own sites, I don't move dirt, I don't take down trees, I don't build buildings. But what we do is work with a lot of the guys you're going to hear from today to understand where our industrial sites are throughout the region, are there sites that do need a little work? Do you need a rail spur? Do you need some sewer nearby? What would it take to get there? And we are amazed at what we have uncovered. Within our region, we have identified at least 5 sites of 1,000 acres or more. That's enough for another Blue Oval. So I'm going to ask you all to dream for just a second. What if we had not 1, not 2, but 3 Blue Ovals within a 30-minute drive of where we sit today? What does that do for our economy, for our region, for our families, our friends, our schools? That's what we're aiming for. That's what we plan to do. So of the 54 projects, what are we seeing? Electricity is the discussion we have all day, every day. For those of you in industrial development, you know that prior to really last year, we rarely saw a project over 5 megawatts. Most were coming in at 1.5 megawatts. Now, 60% of my pipeline is over 5 megawatts, and I've got 3 projects that are over 100 megawatts. Nobody in the country has that. Most of these projects are driven by federal legislation, whether it's the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, DOE and DOD programs. But that electricity and our ability to generate it is going to be critical. Building sizes have gotten larger, rarely seeing requests for anything under 250,000 square feet. Single tenant is becoming more and more important. Companies are, it's sort of, they don't really know where they want to go and grow, and they don't want to be bound by a multi-tenant, so we're seeing a lot of single tenant. And what we're seeing as well, for those that did have spec buildings that sat there for years and years and years, they're getting a lot of interest right now. Because these same federal programs that are driving a lot of these projects, so it's in key technologies around semiconductors, batteries, solar cells, and microchips. They are driven by federal laws written by people who never built a microchip or a microchip factory. So the federal law says you got to build your factory in X amount of time. Nobody's built a microchip factory that fast. So these spec buildings are becoming incredibly important. And we're often looking at warehouses and saying, what can we do to push the roof up, reinforce the floors, and turn it into a factory? And then always, always, always workforce. And I got to tell you, we have a great story to tell here in Memphis. Being located in Tennessee with some of the most workforce-friendly programs of any state in the country, no other state has the free community college that we do. And here in Memphis, we have a larger percentage of our population that are young workers. Companies want to know that because they want to know if they hire you at 24, they get another 20, 30 years out of you. So that's what we're talking about with them. And then returning to the public infrastructure, that electricity is huge, water is huge, transportation and childcare. Ursula referenced it in regards to Blue Oval City. The mayor talked about it in terms of getting folks to Blue Oval City. We have found that childcare and transportation are the 2 biggest impediments to achieving full employment within our region. So where can we apply pressure and support to solve for some of those issues? So this is what we're talking to companies about, all 54 of them, coming from a diverse range of industries. I will tell you that of the 54 projects we are working, 90% of those are advanced manufacturing. And it's making everything from food products to consumer goods to the core technologies I referenced, microchips, semiconductors, batteries, and solar cells. So that's what we do at the Chamber. It's the coolest job ever. I can't believe it. Excited to answer any questions you have. And here's a bit of contact information for us. I encourage you all to visit Memphis Moves. You have access to a lot of that data that I showed on the data heavy slide. That's all there for you to download. And I guarantee you'll learn something cool about Memphis. Thank you so much.
So we're doing a little bit differently. Traditionally, we've had 3 or 4 sectors. And today we have folks from office, retail, and industrial, and they do presentations. But we'll get to the questions. But we thought we wouldn't just throw a ton of slides and data at you, and instead have these guys talk about their sectors and what's going on in Memphis and the Memphis area, and also have our other keynotes here. And so I've got questions for them. And, I'm doing something wrong. Sorry about that. And then we'll do Q&A with you all. And again, everybody will be here, and we'll go over into the 2 bars and the Las Vegas Lounge and be able to talk more to everybody. Let me bring first. Well, I'll stay with. We've been kind of industrial heavy, so I'm going to stay with that for a second and ask Tim. I should introduce you all better. I'm so bad at introductions. Tim Mashburn, who is Executive Vice President and Principal at Colliers International, talking here about industrial. Blue Oval, we've talked a lot about it. I mean, how is that impacting, I assume, greatly your world right now?
Yeah, I think overall, we have not seen it necessarily move the absorption needle yet. In 23, I think that's coming 23, 24. As Ursula mentioned, we'll have the suppliers that are on site, obviously, but then more importantly, it's all the ancillary groups that are servicing them in a myriad of ways that we are seeing a large amount of interest. But as Gwyn alluded to, once Ford puts their stamp of approval on West Tennessee, you cannot believe what that does for the whole region. And I think that there's a lot of other projects that we're not going to talk about. We can't necessarily name them, but you're going to see more coming down the pipeline, I think. And it's kind of an amazing waterfall that the region's going to see.
If I promise that we won't tell anyone, can you name some of those projects?
Come on. Big Gwyn will kill me.
Come on. And I really will. I'll kill you.
When we did a story recently, Jane Roberts did a story about the possible Paris flight, I texted Ted Townsend and said, it wasn't from me. It wasn't from me. And I don't know if he's speaking to me or not.
Keep saying that, Eric.
Yeah, I know, it wasn't from me. It really wasn't. I read it. I was on vacation. Let me get Ron Kastner, Senior VP from CBRE, talking about office and segue a little bit. Office has obviously been one of the hardest hit areas in terms of the comeback from COVID. And, the reality.
It's been terrible.
What's that?
It's been terrible.
It's been terrible. I mean, the reality and the perception of all offices are empty, downtowns are empty, all these kinds of things. But, the truth is every market's different. And so what have you seen in terms of office?
I think your point about every market is different is very, very true and important to realize that people read something that maybe somebody in Miami wrote from their bedroom that hadn't been in the office in 6 months, and it gets printed, and it's the second thing that they've written in 2 years that actually made it to press, and it's all of a sudden they're an expert. It's not to say that there are national trends going on that are definitely traceable and measurable, but Memphis really, we are not a heavy commuter town, and there's almost a direct correlation in markets between the longer the commute time, the greater the vacancy. And Memphis has probably a 12-minute commute time, average commute in this city. If you think about it, it's very easy to get around this town. And I'm referring to commute times because that's a big, if you're in Atlanta and it takes you an hour and a half to get to work there and back both ways, and or you're in Connecticut and you got to ride the train for 45 minutes each morning every day and back home at night, it's a drain. It is. When that employee tells their employer that, hey, I can do this from home, those markets are allowing that more so, granted. But here in Memphis, and I hope what Gwyn said changes this, but we don't have a reputation of being a heavy tech sector market as tenants, right? We're, thankfully, we're a medical community. We are financial services, and we're legal. Those are probably your largest 3 occupiers across the board in the city of Memphis. And all those 3 different facets I mentioned, they were some of the first to come back to the office and get people back to the office. So while nationally, that trend was already happening before COVID. COVID was an accelerant to companies having a workaround to getting technology specifically to their older employees that were slow to embrace it. But that everybody's been on a Zoom call, probably even today you've been on a Zoom call. It's just become a way of life. But the net effect is a decline in the usage of office space, but it's going to be also an opportunity to repurpose. For example, in our downtown, 5 office buildings, former office buildings, are now under construction or soon to be under construction to be converted to a higher and better use of either residential, entertainment, retail, or a mix of the 3. And that's a good thing. So it does present opportunity. And Memphis, in general, I would give it, a very healthy read right now as far as its investability and the pre-COVID levels of occupancy, rent rates, we're all really back to where we were. So that's encouraging.
We can bring in Carson Claybrook, who's vice president at Cushman and Wakefield. We'll talk and commercial advisors, Cushman and Wakefield commercial advisors. Talk about retail. Again, retail was hit hard during stay-at-home COVID. How has it bounced back? What do you see now and over the next few years?
Yeah, I think surge would be the right word to characterize it after COVID. We were forced to, all be in our homes.
Well, maybe pull your mic closer to you. Yeah.
We were forced to all be at our homes, sitting doing nothing, and so were retailers, people that are in the market looking for new properties, new locations where travel was on a halt. So when everyone was released, there was a surge and a lot of activity, and that activity has continued. To the point of our vacancy rate here in Memphis, it is a historic low of 3.5%. We average somewhere between 6 and 7%. We're really running out of product. These retailers are competing over properties, specifically in the Class A markets and out parcels. There's a stat that's 290 square feet is under construction, and only 10% of that is for lease right now. So the market has been very healthy, but very competitive, and product is few and far between right now. So you have to get more creative. Things are more difficult, or it's not low-hanging fruit where you really got to roll up your sleeves and work on those sites or those projects to get something done.
The Oak Court Mall, I'll stay with you on retail. Oak Court Mall, and anybody can chime in on this, recently sold after going into foreclosure. Jane Roberts did a really great story for us I don't know, when it first went into foreclosure, about the history and Henry Turley and Bell's, and it was this incredible development in the middle of downtown and then it falls into foreclosure. Been bought by a local group. If you all didn't read it, there's a Wall Street Journal article in the past week or so about the death of malls and the predatory folks who come in and hang on to malls even as they're collapsing. And I think that was very much the fear that was going to happen with Oak Court Mall, right? That there is actually money to be made to let a mall deteriorate and just kind of skim what cash you can off the top of it. Coincidentally, that's what's happening to chain newspapers. But, it is. Your thoughts on the future of malls and the other malls in the market? Are they healthy? Are they going to avoid that fate? This is not a Memphis issue. This is a national issue.
Absolutely. I think malls that you see are thriving in the nation are in colder climates, Minnesota, those areas that you have to be in an indoor mall. Oak Court Mall is an excellent piece of property. I'm glad to see that a local group is involved that really knows the market and knows what's going on. There are a lot of leases that are existing in that mall, so you have to let those burn off and see what you can do with a overall redevelopment there. Obviously, a large building that you would have to demolish, and then you look at interest rates and construction costs right now of how you convert that to something else. But where it sits within our city and the surrounding properties to it, a great investment, I think.
Yeah.
Wolf Chase is still very healthy. That trade area continues to be very, very healthy. I think, I hate to push on this, but a lot of things we see that we relate to malls in this area is crime right now.
Yeah.
And that deters people from going.
Yeah, and I'll ask all y'all about crime. I hate dwelling on it, but also it's, as we talked about with Paul Young, it's the issue of the day. But we come back to Ursula. The biggest misperceptions people have about the Blue Oval project are what?
Well, I think the number one biggest misperception is that it's just Ford that is on that site. I think Ford is such a large presence in this country. It's got a 120-year history. Many of us have a love affair with Ford vehicles. And so Ford's name is attached to this, and they forget about the new piece of this, which is the EV battery. And that new element of manufacturing. Car manufacturing has been with us for a long time, but electrical vehicle batteries, that's new to the U.S. And the sourcing of the materials that go in the batteries, that's going to open up new industry. It's actually really helping bring industry back to the United States.
The one that, I don't know if it's a misperception or not, but one of the things I hear, I don't hear it so much anymore, but I did when it was announced, was people who said, I think we talked about it here last year, was Yeah, great for Haywood County, great for rural Tennessee. It's not only going to be, it'll be good for them, not only nothing for Memphis, but actually a great sucking sound of people going out towards that. Do you see that happen?
No, and part of the reason it's sort of like the mayor-elect said is that 6,000 jobs is a lot of jobs, and they're not all going to come from Haywood County. They are not. Also, our suppliers that will be building on that site are bringing their own people. For example, Magna, that's another 1,000 jobs. As I mentioned before, there is room to grow on the Blue Oval City campus. We can add more BEV sites and more truck plants. So that will mean more jobs in the future. And you have to think about development. So these guys will tell you that people are looking, if we're gonna have 6,000 people, people generally wanna live close to where they work. They maybe don't wanna drive more than 20 minutes. And right now, the development around Tiny Stanton is not, for housing. It'll grow. It'll certainly grow in Shelby County. But those numbers aren't there. So they're gonna go where inventory is already. Memphis, Shelby County has that inventory for people who will move to the area so they can take a job at Blue Oval City. And it will eventually grow out. You will see more development in smaller areas like a Stanton, a Mason, and some of the areas that are around there. But it's gonna take a little bit of time. And right now they don't have the infrastructure. You gotta have sewer in order to do that.
It's a starting point. I mean, really, you got to have it. I mean, if you think about it. Well, I do think also, this is my take, but to Ron's point about commute times, we are so spoiled about commutes, and my friends in other cities, of what I think I was just trying to do it on my map. I think we're like 35 minutes, 40 minutes right from here to Stanton. That's nothing if you're coming from back when I lived in Manhattan or if you live in Atlanta. I mean, those commutes.
We're 40 minutes if you drive 35 miles an hour.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, nobody's driving
traffic.
the speed limit.
That may be with traffic. I should have done it a little bit better, but yeah, I would not take 35 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
Let me, one more question to the panel, and then I'm going to get Q&A with you all. To Gwen, you get the hard one, which is crime. How much does crime, it's on everybody's mind, how much does it impact your recruiting? You're trying to, as you said, what you want is to get people, first and foremost, to come in, but you also want to get people to expand. The conversation about crime is what?
Well, it's not a conversation we shy away from. We have this conversation with the companies we're talking to. It came up yesterday in a pitch we were making, and it's addressed. And quite frankly, the CEO of the company we're talking to looked at me and said, oh, every city has that. And while that's not an excuse for anything, and it doesn't explain anything, it is a fact. We have the conversation, but what they really want to talk about when I'm in front of these companies is everything else about Memphis. They want to talk about our workforce, our people, our neighborhoods. They want to talk about that drive time. We tell companies, in Memphis, a mile is a minute. If something's 40 miles away, it's 40 minutes away. And any other city looks at you and goes, Well, yeah, it really is. We take it for granted. So we don't shy away from the conversation, but when we're talking to companies, it's not really what they want to talk about.
What are the beyond that, the challenges? I mean, for years, as I've covered these kinds of things, it was workforce. Mm-hmm. Is that still?
I would say that is the number one call we get from existing businesses is wanting help with workforce, accessing candidates, finding folks, getting their jobs out there. When we're recruiting projects, the very first conversation we have is around electricity and sewer. I never thought I'd spend so much time talking about sewer, but the first thing they call and say, look, can you do 25 megawatts? Yeah. And if we can't, then that's the end of the conversation.
Let me do questions, and when I call on you, make sure you speak real loudly, just because the acoustics in here are odd. So questions, right? Yeah, right there. And if you would stand and, again, speak awkwardly loudly, and it'll be great.
So my question is for Ursula. So are there going to be tours available for Blue Oval?
The question is if there are tours available at Blue Oval.
So construction is a construction zone. If you're talking post-construction, I believe that there will be opportunities to tour inside the plants. Especially, I know that, students will be interested in that, and educators will be interested in that. Right now, there is a ton of construction. There are about 3,500 construction workers out on the site right now. And so just traffic flow, we try to keep visits to a minimum to tour the area. If somebody is, we're not gonna say, if the governor wants to come and take a look around, we're not gonna stop him. Partly because the state's given us a bunch of money. But, it's not something that's just open to the public to come and look through.
Okay. Other questions? Over here. The question is about electricity and MLGW, TVA, and who's going to be in charge of electricity and supply and how, the benefits. Or are we going to, there's some talk of TVA kind of having, some capacity issues that they're talking about.
So every TVA holds the generation and transmission assets. So they make the electricity and get it to MLGW. And the questions that to your question about what happens in that relationship, to be very honest in this room, there are so many types of relationships across the country between the utility and the generation that the companies kind of don't care. What they want is that level of certainty that they can get the electricity, and then the other big issue has to do with the consistency of the electricity. To Ursula's point, a lot of the machinery and equipment that's going to go into this factory, once it's turned on, it cannot be turned off. If the electricity goes out, the machine breaks, and it's a really, really bad deal for the company. So companies are more concerned about, can we get the electricity to them? Can it stay uninterrupted for the entire life cycle of the plant? And then they're looking at, obviously, cost as well. But the relationships and who provides it, they're pretty agnostic. They just need the lights to come on.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add. So Blue Oval City's partnership with TVA was something that's established right from the beginning. And our site is so large, we need our own source. So we have our own utility plant that's built right onto the site. If the lights go out in Stanton, it's not because we did something at the plant to take your power away. Now, if our lights go out, then there's a big problem. But our site has its own facility, so we're not taking off of where you're drawing power from. And that was something that was very important to people to know. It's the same thing with our site down in Kentucky as well.
Let me stay on that question, which is one of mine. Doug McGowan, 10, 11 months in as CEO of MLGW, going into his second year. I'll start with you, Tim. What within their service area, what do you want to see from MLGW to make your work, economic development generally, better in Memphis?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. Just more, and Doug knows this, be more responsive. Whether it's new development and the process of getting approvals, or if it's existing companies here today that literally cannot get the service they need to expand. I think they do a lot of great things. I think they've cleaned up a lot, but that'd be number one, just be responsive, and they will clean up, from our side, 75% of the problems.
Ron?
Office is not as directly impacted as the requirements that affect industrial, but in the last decade, for sure, we used to get asked a lot of questions about backup generators and redundancy and so forth, because if you went to work, you went to your office. There's a lot more fluidity in the office sector to where people can just, if this zip code's out, they go to the other zip code, and they work around it until it's regenerated. Our relationships with MLGW have always been good. And whether it's getting redundant circuits on properties and having secondary means, should there be an outage, has always been, very fluid, and Doug has done, a tremendous job thus far, we think.
Same to Carson.
Yeah, repeat what Tim said. I mean, mainly on the retail side, it deals with new development, but it's responsiveness, communication, getting a pole, a transformer, anything up. There have been projects delayed numerous times waiting on, they said they were going to be here, and it's a week and a half later, and they're still not here, and everything's on halt. Tenants are waiting for spaces to be delivered, and it's all hinging on MLG&W.
Nobody mentioned rate increases. So you don't have tenants or prospective tenants who are balking at this series of rate increases that have been done and are proposed?
Can I just put on my city hat for a
Yeah,
second? I know that nobody particularly enjoys getting their utility bill. We understand that. But the city of Memphis has not had a real, MLGW has not had a rate increase. I think we've had one rate increase in 20 years. And our infrastructure is in the shape that it's in because there was no investment in it. I think there's a plan in place. The plan's getting worked. I think that the infrastructure will improve and our reliability will improve.
Yeah, and I'll say to Ursula's point and to your question, we find them very responsive because we're bringing them giant new customers. So what I think we really need as a community is that reliability. I don't know about you guys, I feel like my power goes out more than it used to. Yes? Yeah, it'd be nice if it didn't. To Ursula's point, there can be investments in the infrastructure that can improve that reliability.
And I also think that the purchasing of electric vehicles and having that power supply at your home is going to be a game changer actually for utility companies. Once there's enough people who actually have that hookup in their homes and where they can do bi-directional power sharing and be able to actually share power with the utility company, it'll reduce their bills. I mean, this is future out, right? But you've got to start somewhere, and it starts with this electric vehicle process or putting solar panels on your home and finding a way to reduce that cost and boost our reliability in the utility. Sorry.
No.
City hat. Sorry.
Well, no, I think also nationally our utilities are cheap. So
yes.
I think anybody running a business, even being a citizen, let's pay for what's fair and let's take care of our infrastructure, as Ursula said.
Okay. We may come back, but questions? Right there. Yeah. Yeah. We'll do you and then you. Yeah.
My question is for Tim and Carson. So we talked about the new developments coming to the Memphis area. Are these going to be brand new developments outside the city itself, or are we going to start managing like the not nearly as? This is actually a better way to phrase this question. Are we going to start developing it outside of Shelby County, or are you going to start demolishing the old buildings in the middle there?
Did y'all hear it in the back, or do I need, can I repeat? Is it, okay, so are we gonna, hopefully I do this right, are we gonna be building outside Shelby County, or building new in Shelby County, or are we demolishing in Shelby County and building new in Shelby County? It's kind of that's the question.
So the short answer is I hope we do everything, but what has happened from an industrial perspective, there was the last industrial building was built down on Getwell in 2007. Panetone built like a 1 million foot building.
In Shelby County.
In Shelby County, yeah, in Shelby County. Shelby County proper went through, I'm talking like a spec, development, almost a 10-year period of not building anything. So the story is really 17 on, you've seen a tremendous amount of new development in Shelby County, really in Memphis proper, in southeast, southwest, some north Memphis. And you will, if you go right now, if you go to Holmes and Malone, there's an 861,000 foot building sitting down there, spec basis. They've dropped $70 million on the ground, and we'd love to have somebody come and take that. And you're going to see more of that. There's other sites ready to go. And so I think we'll continue to see that. That is so important because that raises our tax base. I've said this before. Gwyn does a great job. We need to raise the tax base in the city. If not, it's going to crumble. We're not going to be able to pay for all these great projects, but also the jobs that it brings. We can talk a lot about fighting crime, but a job fights it all. I truly believe that's what Gwyn's trying to do every day. And so I really feel pretty good about where we're going with development inside the county. Now, we will see development in Marshall County, and you know, it's not all just going to be in Shelby County, but overall, high tide's going to raise all ships. That's kind of from the industrial side.
Yeah, and on the retail side, I mean, these retailers look at Memphis as an MSA, not just Shelby County and proper. So you've seen quite a lot of development go on within the Shelby County boundaries. Some areas that hadn't had development in a while. You look at Austin P. Highway, Elvis Presley Boulevard, Summer Avenue. These are areas that you know, national retailers are flocking to and putting up new properties, maybe not new large shopping centers, but new businesses. You asked about tearing down buildings. That's really, you know, does the deal pencil? When a retailer looks at that, can I tear down this building, construct a new building from what I'm paying for this lot with an existing building on it? Demolition costs, it's all part of the deal of, you know, do I make the return I want to make on it?
Ron, thoughts on new, build, renovate?
Well, you know, the office market here has not seen a new office, a spec office building in almost a decade, and that was really in the city of Germantown. And, you know, we've talked about conversions, and Carson's point about conversion and construction. We'd all be remiss if we did not recognize the challenges that exist in that sector and in lending, but that the cost of materials post-COVID has not really receded, and the cost of labor has almost doubled. So the prospects of building something, whether you're tearing it down or building something new out of the ground, if you have a site, are few and far between. I mean, Nashville, comparatively, there's a lot of deliveries still coming onto the market, but those deliveries were started in some cases 4 years ago. Even some were pre-COVID. And so they're really having, Nashville is having a hard time receiving all the product that's been built and dealing with, you know, a 6% of their total inventory being available for sublease. Yeah. Memphis has been a bit, we've been very lucky. We don't have a lot of sublease space. There's product out there, but the projects that are underway, and I'm very bullish about the things that are going on, you know, and Carson mentioned, between, you know, whether it's 100 North Main or the Racquet Club or Oak Court, Northside High School. There's just, you know, in one of the worst lending environments I've ever seen in my career, and one of the highest cost eras of labor and materials, we've got that many projects going on. So, and not to mention the standard at Carrefour as well. And those are going to probably have sprinkled in office, you know, not to the magnitude of what you'd have seen 10 or 20 years ago, but just about every one of those I mentioned, except maybe the Sterrett building, is going to have a decent supply, a part of it that's going to have office. And that's where you're going to see office come back to the marketplaces, when it's in a highly amenitized mixed-use environment, rather than a freestanding building sitting, you know, at the corner of, you know, Winchester and Hacks Cross, for example.
Yeah. Let me go to you. There.
Hi. My question is more for Gwyn. So a lot of the discussion today has been about transportation and the role that that's going to play when all these new companies come into Memphis. So you started earlier about how our current commute is about 12 minutes, you know, getting from point A to point B. But when you bring in 50-something companies and you have all these thousands of new jobs, that's a lot more people on the street. That commute is obviously going to get a lot longer, right? So with any of this discussion of expansions, are there any discussions also about maybe improvements in public transportation or to infrastructure within the city to accommodate all this?
Fantastic question. So I'll repeat it just in case.
Yeah, please do.
She's said that, you know, we've already got the 6,000 to 7,000 jobs coming to Blue Oval City. Transportation is an issue. If we do our jobs well, it's 50,000 new jobs. That's a lot of growth, and that 1 mile equals 1 minute will not hold true anymore. And our question is, what are we doing about transportation planning, infrastructure planning, things like that? Great question. So it's a multifaceted approach. It's about getting real about how we move people from point A to point B. In talking with the entire Ford team, they have done some amazing things at facilities around the country. And buses, electric vehicles, electric buses, that kind of system, something you could use to reach places that are farther away. We absolutely need to manage our infrastructure. We have been calling for additional capacity across the Mississippi River for more than 20 years. We believe that America deserves a bigger, larger new river crossing It's not just a Tennessee, Arkansas thing. We talk to our colleagues in real estate all the time about traffic flows and where they're wanting to build construction, what will that do. We also get calls from companies right now. We got a call from a company down on President's Island. One of the turn signals wasn't running long enough at shift change time. And so that was backing up their traffic concerns, but there are also environmental concerns. So we take a real holistic approach to making sure that people can access these jobs. And we're excited to be looking at models that go just beyond traditional public transportation.
I will add to that and say the state of Tennessee, the economic development team has also got a transportation study that they are working on that's been informed by Blue Oval City, what we think our capacity is going to be, but also they are talking with local leaders and transportation companies within the region to figure out what those needs are and what those costs are. This would have been an excellent question for Mayor-elect Paul Young.
Yes.
But, to determine, right now, we've got Madden in the city of Memphis that does some routing out to the county areas, and I think they just restored a route over to West Tennessee. But really, there needs to be a line that goes back and forth between Jackson and Memphis. That just runs all day, and you can stop and get off at that point. We do have a rail spur that it's out on the Blue Oval City site. We're obviously going to use that to transport our vehicles to where they need to go. But there's also an opportunity there for, commuter transportation as well. That's something that the state has to look into and the federal government has to approve. That's a long process. It was one of the first things, before I left the city, it's one of the first things that we looked at is how are we going to get all of our people out there to work at Blue Oval City? And one of the first things that popped into our mind was there's a CSX railroad that runs right by there, and they're offering all this money through the CHIPS program to increase train transportation. Let's get on that. And then that was one of those things where you get down the road and you're just like, okay, the governor has to ask this, request this of Congress. Congress has to get involved, which Steve Cohen has. He's made those requests to the Transportation Department, and we'll see where that goes. But there is a lot of thought going into it.
And I'll add a little color on why this is so important and how we're framing the conversation. Think about a church parking lot in Whitehaven. That may get used 2 days a week, 3 days a week. The rest of the week, it's not used. If I can drive 1 mile to that church parking lot and get on a BOSK bus that's fully Wi-Fi'd, and I'm riding out to work, so maybe I'm taking courses to increase my credentials or work. Hell, I can watch YouTube all day. I don't care. You ride the bus out, you go to work, you ride the bus back. I hit the grocery store in the Whitehaven neighborhood, and I pick up my dry cleaning in the Whitehaven neighborhood. And what that allows us to do is to push that economic impact of a Blue Oval job into the neighborhoods where people are living. So it's not just about, can I move Bob from home to work and back again? It's about the overall economic impact of Bob having that job. So that's really the approach we're taking. And I gotta say, these guys have been fantastic partners in helping us dream big to make sure that transportation is not an obstacle to people getting these jobs.
Let me bring the three of y'all in. I mean, for years, I've heard with, the distribution, airport area, getting people down there to jobs has always been a challenge. So I assume in a magical world, Tim, there'd be great mass transit to help get more workers into warehouse districts.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I mean, I would actually love for this problem to come about where we're having to, it means Gwyn and the team, everybody's done their job. I will say this about the workers in our region. I mean, they are extremely hard workers. They're resilient. We don't hear that. I mean, we've pushed from an industrial perspective. We've pushed out into Marshall County, which is honestly 40 minutes from here. But with 269, the outer loop, it's really linked the city much more than it was 10 years ago, and we are not seeing as many transportation barriers. Of all the obstacles that we all deal with, transportation and getting somebody to a job is not one today that necessarily sits, on our forefront.
Other questions here? Yeah.
So you mentioned some of the suppliers locating on the site, tier ones. What about the tier 1, 2s, and 3s that won't be on the site? Are
I think they're looking all over and trying to find out where they fit in best according to their business. You know, for some of the smaller growth issues like restaurants and amenities, we've tried to help inform the state what we think workers will want to have around or have access to around the plants. That's something that they're looking into. But I think it's going to be competitive, but I think it's going to be a good thing. There's not going to be a shortage of demand for, you know, restaurants or other things. But I can't really talk about our suppliers.
And I think I could give a little more color to that. So the question was, Ursula said there are going to be certain number of suppliers that are located on Blue Oval City, that number 5 area in the middle. But there are obviously more, and where are they looking? And so the answer to that is they are truly looking all over West Tennessee. Some want to look more towards Memphis, others want to look more towards Jackson. What is driving their decision is often industrial sites. Do we have what they need? And then many of these are companies that make parts for lots of different automobile companies. So what is driving them is their supply chain. Do they need to be on rail? Are there raw materials coming from Asia or Mexico or Europe? Who are they supplying? Are they supplying in addition to Blue Oval? Are they also supplying Volkswagen, BMW, things like that? So they're really looking all over West Tennessee. Supply chain is driving it. Industrial sites are driving it. And again, electrical capacity.
We'll go 5 more minutes here, but a quick question from Carson, an oddball one maybe, but how much does labor issues, particularly in retail, and people hiring into restaurants and hiring into hourly wages, does that slow people down and say, well, that's a great location, we want to get in the Memphis market, we want to get into whatever area of Memphis, but we know we can't hire, so there's no reason for us to get started. Is that part of the conversation, or is that less so?
Less so. I haven't really seen that slow any you know, development or activity down. It's more so once they open, they're dealing with that, and that really was a problem from the pandemic on. To where you know, government stipends were going out, and people were just not wanting to go work at restaurants or retail businesses.
Okay. Wait, did you have a question over there? There was one more question here. Yeah, Mike.
With the UAW strike, there was a lot of banter, I guess, some of it posturing, I think, on both sides, about the loss of battery plants, especially in the way that was affected within the agreement, et cetera. In fact, Kentucky was specifically mentioned, fortunately ours wasn't. But how do you see that shaking out and affecting us? I know there's a positive of the union, you know, bringing higher wage and all that, but just how do you see that? That's our first.
Yeah, I figured. So, couple of things. Blue Oval SK and really the battery plants were not part of that conversation. One, you have to have a certain amount of employees to even become a union shop in that way. But we weren't at the table for the conversation. That was strictly between the car manufacturers and UAW. I think that UAW did want to use this new type of manufacturing as sort of as a piece of leverage in their negotiations, from what I saw on the outside looking in. But I think, you know, the cost of labor has gone up. And what we have seen, or what we have tried to do, is to actually meet the market where it's at. And ultimately, it'll be up to employees to decide whether they feel like they need to unionize.
I'm going to do one last real quick question. I'll ask you to answer quickly. Mayor-elect had to go. They always have to go. The mayor-elect had to go. And what beyond crime, because I think that's top of mind and we talked about that, what do you want to see from the new mayor's administration? And let's do it from your point of view, and I'll start with Carson, from the retail development point of view.
Just say more ease to do business, to develop, you know, working with the city, specifically the Office of Planning and Development, city engineering. It seems like that we hit the pandemic, and that's not necessarily they're still there, but it's everything takes more time in our world.
Ron?
I'll go back to what Paul mentioned earlier about using the Dr. Fauci analogy, and I was glad to hear you make him Dr. Fauci, which is important because employers have a hard enough time getting employees to come into the workplace every day. And if someone is abducted in the parking lot or the car is broken into, they go to their employer and they say, look, I don't feel safe coming here. What's the employer supposed to do?
Yeah.
And so I think not to beat a dead horse with the crime, but it's clearly making that a top priority.
Tim?
Yeah, I think, and he alluded to this, but all of us up here are talking to people across the country, institutional investors bringing capital to our market. And Tennessee nationally is a hotbed for everybody loves it, everybody wants to get here. So, with Ford putting a flag in West Tennessee, I want to see him just, grab that and the enthusiasm and the positivity of Tennessee as a whole and what we have going in West Tennessee and Memphis and really run with that. And I think if he can do that, create a ton of jobs, that's going to fix a lot of the problems.
Gwen?
So I tell folks, everyone in this room is actually an economic developer, whether you know it or not. And we are so excited to have a mayor coming in who is an economic developer. So we are really thrilled to continue to partner with the mayor's office to bring these jobs and help our existing businesses grow too. That's what we're excited about.
And from a blue oval, not a city point of view, from a city official point of view.
Oh, no. I just think that the transportation is going to be a vital key to that. And I think we are going to be looking toward the city of Memphis to help us with recruitment, to reach people and to let them know about the jobs that we have. The city has some unique tools to reach individuals and to reach into homes. And I think that's going to be important to us.
Okay. You can continue to ask these folks questions, but please kind of migrate with them so they too can get a drink. Please give a round of applause to the panelists here. We really appreciate it.